listening to or from is currently better than Jacoby Brissett, and unfollow them. That is just a public service announcement from your friendly podcast and radio host.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Running back. As we just kind of go down the list here. Not a lot to talk about. 3 guys that we anticipated. The interesting thing, if you will, is that Jonathan Williams gets IR'd. So we should have mentioned Derek Gore as a potential practice squad guy. It looks like he is going to go that direction. What do you make of Gore over Patterson as the practice squad running back? Because that is honestly the only thing that is even remotely not self-explanatory.
Yeah, I think the thing that was interesting about it was when I saw the cuts and I saw how they kind of timed them out. I was like, man, we forgot to mention Gore. And Gore should have been our obvious choice after Jonathan Williams, I think. I think Jonathan Williams had a better training camp preseason, did a really nice job. But Gore knows the system. He's explosive. He kind of fits all the criteria. He knows what EB wants, and there's value there. You know, he's played NFL football. He's played at football in Kansas City. He knows this offense. Like, that's worth a lot, in my opinion. And for a guy who actually had a pretty good cycle once he got here, you know, everyone saw him in the last game, breaking off those long runs. He's got a physical running style. He's quick. He catches the football well. Like, why not? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think he's played a little teams as well, which is, I think, is the separator between him and Patterson on top of the system knowledge.
Yeah, and I think, Patterson, I like Patterson. I think Patterson had a good offseason too, but there is something to be said. You know, it's like any job. Like, if I know you and we're boys and I know we can work together really well, like, I'm more likely to employ you or work with you or bring you in for the job. And I think, Patterson's a great guy. You know, like, I've talked to him a little bit. He's like, his story's awesome. He's a good football player. He's going to be on a team, a practice squad at some point this year. But I think the Gore connection to EB, like, is probably the defining factor, even more than teams. Like, it's just, he knows him. He played well. He looked in good shape. He did everything he needed to do. So, I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, this guy played in 11 games in 2021, so he's got that NFL experience, which is helpful. All right, tight end. This is probably the biggest shocker to me on the roster is Curtis Hodges makes it. Hodges just frankly did not produce in camp, but as I've thought about it over the last couple of days, results not there. Like, for sure, he dropped too many balls. Like, his statistical production not very good. How did he progress though from like a route running, blocking, the things that we are going to have a harder time seeing just watching a preseason game? How did he progress there enough so that they thought this was worth it?
Well, I think when you look back to last year, he's come light years. You know, he's in like in a totally different ballpark, and so I think he's good. He's good in line. He's not great in line. He's good in line. And I think that's something you can win with, especially when John Bates is your only true, like, blocking Y. I think he's probably, I'd say, the second best blocker in the room. So there's value there. And I still look at how he runs routes, man. I'm like, man, for a guy who's that big, for him, like, I think you made the Sammy Reyes comparison on the last show. And to me, it's not even in the same sphere, because he's so fluid. He understands leverages and coverages. He's got this really nice suddenness that you wish kind of Sam East had as a basketball player. So for me, I think he does some really, really good stuff. He does. Like, when you see his good stuff, it's amazing. The problem is that he just didn't, like, we talked about this a lot with him and with a lot of the guys, a lot of the young receivers too. Kaz Allen, same thing, is you want to see a certain kind of consistency and a certain kind of finish, especially in the passing game and the run game as well. I will say in the third preseason game, I thought I saw a little bit of that finish in him. I thought I saw him running the ball a little bit more. He's around, like one of the things I like to do is, like, when the camera's zooming in on the ball carrier, like, who's in the vicinity, and so you get a lot of Ricky Stromberg, you get a lot of, whoever it is in there. Bryson Tremaine's a guy who likes to finish like that. And all of a sudden, like, Curtis Hodges is in the shot. I thought he's pushing himself a little bit. And so maybe that's what they needed to see from him. But when I look at him, like, he's a guy that, again, the reason he makes the roster, in my opinion, is, again, because I think he's progressed as a blocker. He's your second best blocker, blah, 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 blah. But he could be great. And that's the thing that I keep coming back to him is, like, there's a lot of guys like Dylan had a really good training camp, really, really good. But he is who he is. Much like myself. Like, his ceiling is, his floor is not very low. His floor is not very low, but his ceiling is not very high. Curtis, his ceiling is like a top 5 player in the NFL. Like, that's what his ceiling is. Now, Is he going to get there? I have no idea. He's got to figure it out. But I don't want that guy just on the street for anybody to come grab. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. Is his ceiling is such that it's worth this little bit of progression you've seen from him. It's worth getting him on the 53, I would say.
Yeah, that's I think that's a difference in a lot of the guys that get cut in a guy like Hodges is if you cut a borderline player, most of the time that player, like maybe he shows up and he's a starter somewhere else and you're like, man, good for him.
Yeah.
Very rarely is a guy who gets cut going to turn into a potential top 5 tight end in the league. And, I think that there is like a consistency to great players that I would say it's very unlikely he reaches that. I'm not saying you're saying it's like super likely.
I agree. I think
just to even have that possibility is tantalizing.
Yeah.
And he didn't practice last year because he was on IR the whole year. So Ron said, like, we look at him as a rookie, as a developmental project. So we want to get him that practice time and ultimately play time. I do think there's concern about Logan Thomas for sure from an injury standpoint, whether it's this injury or whatever could potentially come next. But I think that, that potential is the difference for sure in him getting on the team. And he can give you something right now. But we'll see. It's one of those that they also didn't have another option if they wanted to keep a 4th tight end. So that's, Dylan, right? Dylan's hurt.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, I mean, he got IR'd. So, whether that's hey man, we want to keep you around for next year. You're gonna have a job in the spring. You cool with this? Whatever that conversation is. Actually, I take that back. To add on to that though, I think there's a chance he shows up somewhere else this year because he was a guy that was mentioned as potentially getting an injury settlement. So he might get waived and ultimately be allowed to go pursue another job. But he does get IR'd initially. So, if they've needed the depth, that's the kind of thing where, when they talk about the fluidity of the roster, could they go get someone else? I think that's also possible depending on what they need right now. I also wonder, too, they cut Arma, which we thought could happen. We talked about the exact situation that's happening on the last pod where Arma gets cut. They're going to bring him back. Do you let the initial wave of signings happen and kind of this chaos leading up to noon today and the waiver wire deadline, practice squads get filled, and then you cut Hodges in favor of Arma and hope that sneakily allows him to get back to practice squad? I don't know if that actually works, but it seems like it's on the table.
Yeah, I think that, part of me is like, just cut him. If that's the plan, just cut him with everybody else. Hopefully he gets lost in the sauce a little bit. Yeah. But again, I don't want him going someplace else. As much as I was frustrated with his production this offseason, like he's gotten better. Like I've raved about his route running. The finish has to be better, but there's very few guys you get in free agency. And that's why it's so weird to be here with this team. You have Armani Rogers, who obviously is injured, who again has that skill set, and then Curtis Hodges. And it's like, how did you find both of these guys in addition to drafting Cole Turner, who's probably going to play a ton of minutes for you this year? They are really, really lucky, and I think they're doing a good job of kind of saying, we know what we have here. We know we kind of hit the lottery. How do we maintain this while these guys develop? And if they do come around, we're going to be sitting pretty. We're going to have something that nobody else in the NFL has, is 3 young dudes who can all play, all catch the ball, all block well. And that is just something that I think as a coach is very, very tantalizing. So I think they're going to do whatever they can to keep him around. To your point, is this kind of a way to get past that initial cuts, put him in a good spot? Perhaps, I don't know. But I think, again, to me, it's his talent, is his potential is what keeps him in the building. And I do think he's improved in some of those areas that maybe we can't see as reticently. His run blocking's gotten a lot better, all that kind of stuff.
Which brings us to wide receiver to close out the offense. And, I mean, congrats to Mitchell Tinsley.
Congrats, man.
Deserves it. And, it's the kind of thing that I love to see. I love to see meritocracy. I think it's the best thing about training camp is when you see a guy who just consistently shows up and makes plays and just forces his way onto the roster. And that's what Tinsley did. He forced his way on because he was good basically every single day. And what his role is going to be, I have no idea. He might not even be active on game days. But he deserves to be on the team, and so he's on the team. Good for him and good for them.
Yeah, and he's a guy that, just has been a consistent player, and coaches speak very, very highly of him. And I think you're seeing that come to fruition a little bit here, because of how he's produced, especially in the last game. But yeah, like what is his role going to be? I have no idea. Like right now, to me, he's Dax Milne like light, and I think you hope that he can develop into more than Dax at some point. But I think like when you talk about special teams coaches' eyes light up about him. I haven't seen that from him. Like there's certain guys you watch, like for example in the joint practice, like Bryson Tremaine. I'm only bringing him up because like they're both rookies, they both do the same stuff. Like in terms of team's value, Bryson Tremaine is an animal. You know what I'm saying? He's a big physical dude. He's like in the double vice drill, he absolutely smoked one of the vice guys in the Baltimore practice, like knocked him to the ground type of stuff. Like he's just got a different physicality to him. Tremaine, that's not his cup of tea. Maybe you feel like he can return punts for you at some point. I know when I was watching film of him after they signed him, he was in an all-star game and returned punts in the all-star game. Now, the thing that I would just say, like, hold up, wait a minute, is because like he didn't get any reps doing that in the preseason. And
Right.
I would have liked to see that if that's something that you're planning on doing. Because I do think he's got some, like in watching those, it was 5 returns, so not a lot of returns. But he has some ability to do that. So like, why not, if this was in the cards, why not give it a look? Would be my question to that, because like right now, like I don't see how he's active on game day. I think Pringle's active. I think Dax is active because he's going to return punts for you. And I don't really understand, like it feels like a missed opportunity a little bit, if this was the way you wanted to go, like just to see how he looks. Because I know he does it in practice. I've seen him do it at practice. So why not just see him do it live and in living color, like, for a quarter or whatever. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So just a kind of a weird that I'm not being critical of the staff. I know there's a million other variables they're going to making this decision. He deserves to make the team, but I just would like to know if he could do it. I think would be my one comment on that.
For sure. He did return punts in college, barely. He returned 5 as a freshman at Western Kentucky. Then he transferred to Penn State. He didn't return any his second year at Western Kentucky, and then his last year in school at Penn State, he returned 4. He has a total of 9 career returns for 10 total yards. So not exact for those that like
Math.
Dax Milne's punt return stats. Let me introduce you to Mitchell Tinsley's college stats. They look extraordinarily similar.
But in the All-Star game, I think he had like a 25-yard. You know what I mean? Like there's something there. But
it's all about opportunities.
I would have liked to see him just do it in the preseason. Like if this was and that's the thing. Usually coaches are pretty good about getting a bead for the roster and like where it's at and being like, this guy has a shot. So let's get him an opportunity at the stuff we want to see him do. And so the fact he didn't get it makes me think that they don't want him to do that. And if that's the case, then how do you contribute on teams? Like, are you, usually receivers, if you're going to contribute on punt, you're a gunner, right? He didn't do it really any of that, or he wasn't very good at it, and that's fine. He's not a huge body guy who's
and your gunners are set, like Holmes and Butler are your guys.
It's just interesting, like how he contributes, and maybe they don't plan on him contributing, but again, congrats to him as a receiver. He definitely deserved it. Definitely did a great job. But I'm just curious. It'd be curious to kind of keep an eye on that and his development, his role within in the team.
Let me ask you this: is there one of the receiver spots that you trust him over Milne right now, where you would be like, oh, hey, we need someone to go in at X, at Z, at Zebra?
Oh, that's a good question. I think Dax is pretty good. Like I think when you look at his training camp at F, he's probably or Zebra for them is what they call it. He did a great job. I think
that's the slot for those not familiar with the zoo.
Yeah, right. And then I think he could play Z. I guess maybe he's got some X qualities. I didn't see it. I didn't see that like X receiver guy. Like in terms of skill sets, I think you'd probably put Jahan there maybe before. And like traditionally the body type is like Bryson Tremaine, like that 6'5" freak. It's going to stand, and he plays X, right? But he's not ready to be on the roster yet. So I'm not saying they should have done that. But to me, him and Dax are very, very similar, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that flexibility and that route running nuance just says, hey, like, you can really play any of the spots because your route running nuance is so high, and you're a smart guy, and you know multiple spots. And we talk about position flex a lot with the O-line, but for those backup receivers, like the dude that's going to play first usually knows a ton of spots. Like, so Diami's probably more of an outside guy, which means Dax is going to play a lot of inside. But, if something happens to Diami, I trust Dax and Tinsley, for that matter, to be able to step in at any of the spots. And so maybe that's kind of what you're looking at there is you just get 2 dudes who are just really good receivers, sure-handed, and kind of get the finer points of route running. And we've talked about how like Jahan has excelled in this offense because he's such an excellent route runner. These guys are very much in that mold, Dax and Tinsley. They're very much in the mold of, they're not like height, weight, speed guys. They're like, kind of, they're like 6 foot. They're like 200-ish
they're
pounds.
Technicians.
Yeah, they're very, very technically sound. And so that allows you to do multiple things. I also think they're pretty tough guys, and like when you're playing that and you got to come in, like you mentioned this before, like when you're the 5th receiver, 6th receiver, you can't be beneath like going to put your face on a safety. And I think both those guys are willing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's how Cam Sims made his living for a long time. By the way, Cam Sims cut by the Raiders, surprisingly, so he's available. But, Ryan Grant forever when he was here, everyone couldn't stand him as a receiver, and he always seemed to be 1 yard short of a first down, but he'd go dig out a safety, and that gets you a long way with the coaches, which is why Jay loved him. So, that's that part of it. I would say for the punt return part, I do think they wanted the Kaz Allen thing to work so bad.
Right.
And up until the final game, it looks like it was. Like if Kaz has a good final game, I think he's on this team.
I think so too.
Whether it's over Dax or over Tinsley, I don't know. But they wanted to give him every opportunity and figured it would work out. It doesn't. It backfires. Now all of a sudden you have a guy in Tinsley who you didn't give those opportunities. And it's just, them's the breaks sometimes. The reps, there's only a certain number of them. It's a finite number. And you do your best, and sometimes it doesn't really work out.
That's actually a really good point, I think. Yeah, I didn't really think about that. Like you're trying to make it go for a guy who's very talented, and then it doesn't.
I mean, in some ways, it's like Ron's comments on Howell, right? Is like, I wish we would have played him. Well, there wasn't the opportunity to. In hindsight, it's really easy to be like, yeah, definitely shouldn't have played Carson in that game, or maybe we should have just sacrificed the season on some level. But when you're in the middle of a playoff push, you're not going to put a rookie out there.
Yeah.
And so, I think the circumstances of the wide receiver competition were Kaz got hot in the middle of camp.
Yeah.
It looked like he was going to make the team. There was no reason to take away those opportunities from him, and all of a sudden he bombs the final preseason game, and you're like, oh crap, now he's not making the team, and we never got Tinsley any punt return looks.
And to be fair to the staff, it was that game, and then also in the Baltimore practice, it wasn't super sharp for him, So I think it was kind of a combination of like, hey, trending up really hard, kind of plateaued, and then it looked like he was regressing a little bit. So I think that's really good analysis for sure.
So, could they have said like, hey, maybe we should, as a backup plan, give Tinsley some reps, but there's only so many reps, and it is.
And you want to see, and like what did Tana says this all the time. He's like, with a punt returner, I want to see him catch punts. And if you think Kaz is the guy, that's exactly right. Get him out there, get him catching as many punts as you can, and see if it goes. And so obviously it didn't happen the way they wanted to. He'll be around. Obviously, I think he's on practice squad for sure. But and we'll know for sure by the time this comes out. But
yeah, I would be surprised if he's not. Obviously he could get picked up somewhere else, but they definitely want to bring him back. And by week 6, week 7 in the season, could he have caught enough punts that they feel comfortable with it in practice that they elevate him to the active roster? Sure. Or if Dax, God forbid, we always talk about Dax being sure-handed. I'm like, oh man, if he ever drops a punt, my Twitter mentions and our comments are going to be a disaster. All right, that from Take Command, and that's certainly true. It will be a disaster if Dax ever drops one, but we'll hope that doesn't happen for the sake of my Twitter mentions. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, Ben Standig joins us for Not My Beat.
Live from the Window Nation Studios.
To warn you, bro, it is a mess in downtown Nashville every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Not even
we moved hotels the next night. I still am waiting on my refund for that. But yeah, we moved hotels the second night.
Wow.
It was fun. You say they rely on them. We went to brunch with my buddy the next day, who is a Nashville native and has lived in Nashville long enough that he remembers when it was more than just the bachelorette capital of the world. And he's like, yeah, we're pretty much on the woo girl economy.
Yeah, that's precisely what's going on. The downtown businesses cater to that. If you try to get it shut down, you're probably the one getting thrown out. That is what it is right now. It's weird, but Nashville, baby. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. So I will add one more small part to this story, and this is the part, frankly, that I've been waiting to tell you all week as well. That was kind of part one. We got quality Yates reaction. Part two, as we leave the hotel the next morning to go to breakfast. Remember, the wall's very thin. So it's not going where you think it's going. But as we walk down the hallway, my dear sweet wife just starts saying in a slightly elevated volume of voice, you know, it's been proven that the later groups stay out and make noise and all this stuff at their bachelorette weekend, the higher the divorce rate.
Oh God!
In the wedding,
So
and also the better
trash,
chances,
basically.
and also the better chances.
Wow. Okay. Okie dokie. So Rachel was pissed, basically.
Yeah, she doesn't have a lot of tolerance for the Woo girls. They say on the internet, like, feel free to post stuff, you know, like your friends' photos, do whatever. But like whatever you do for your own well-being, don't read the comments. Comment section, bad idea. What do?
We read those comments, baby.
That is exactly what we do. That was a little bit better. I still feel like that one was a little muted. I think sometimes it feels like you build yourself up a little too much, and then sometimes you don't
I ain't
quite
want to
go
go
for it.
screaming all the way. The thing is, though, my mic is a little lower than yours, so maybe I could have actually, did what I really.
Mike
set out
also
to do.
moves. You can go, ooh. Did you know you could play tricks with a microphone?
I think I'll try that next time.
Okay. You want to give it another shot? Or you
We read those comments, baby.
There we go. All right. I feel ready now. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube as well, Twitter too, all the Team 980 feeds there. 5 o'clock, it's actually well past 5 o'clock. Apologies for running a little bit late. We can't keep you from the expertise any longer. It is time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Our expert today, the one and only Ben Standig from The Athletic, who will give us not only the latest on everything going on with the Commanders, but he did his 5th annual agent survey this summer, and the results came out this week, so we'll talk about that in just a few moments. And I guess welcome back, Ben, for the second straight day after Fortier's chicanery yesterday.
Yes, that was fun. Look, as you know, when you're out there, sometimes you gotta shake it up a little bit. So you got to play along with us.
No, I got played as y'all were playing along. You're not driving anywhere, right? We can't have a repeat of the end of that phone call.
No, I didn't know what happened at the end of it. He got pulled over?
Yeah, he got pulled over for being on his phone.
Oh, amazing. I mean, not amazing, but amazing.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I just should let everyone know that was listening yesterday. He's fine. He got a piece of paper that's going to cause him some nuisance, but nothing serious. Everything's just fine in Fortier land. But that was not great. First time that's happened, as far as I know, since it happened to Russell way back in the day, which I think Sam handled it with a lot more calmness, which is unsurprising.
No. That's Russell versus a 3-year-old toddler screaming. I would take the toddler. So,
there's
from
that.
a calm standpoint.
There's that. Hi, Chris. I know you love to listen to the show. Okay. This Chase Young thing, you had the first report on it. He goes to the doctor. Now week 1's in question. What do we know about Chase's status? And also how that reality matches the team's expectations?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, obviously he last played in that first preseason game against Cleveland, suffered a stinger, which, is typically not considered like a long-term situation. There's something else going on if it's continued this long. He has not practiced in full since, no contact. Ron Rivera told us last week that Chase was going to meet with a doctor to discuss whether or not he was could have contact. Twice after that he was asked, hey, what's going on? And twice he declined to answer in any capacity. And what I reported today was there's progress being made in terms of the injury, but he's still not cleared for practice. He's meeting with another doctor this week, and we're at the point now where week 1 is no longer – we're not just going to assume anymore that he is playing. I'm not going to say it's percentage-wise whether he's in or out, but, yeah, that is now definitely up in the air until they get more information, which is, this injury has gone on way longer than you would have thought based on the limited information that they provided us over the last few weeks.
So I think the frustration, Ben, is that Ron seemed to intimate when this first happened, this is no big deal. He'll be back in a couple of days. And there's sometimes he does that and things linger a little longer, but he's typically honest about some of those, like Logan Thomas. He's like, hey, we're just being super careful. This isn't a big deal, but it could be a while because we're being super careful. Am I misremembering things that this seems like both with his knee last year and how that was strung along and with this, that there seems to be some kind of disconnect between the information we get and the reality of the medical situation, and the way we get the information is via Ron Rivera?
Yeah, I mean, I think last year ultimately what happened was, as far as the team knew, Chase Young was cleared to come back several weeks prior to when he ultimately did. But it was up to him to say, hey, it's his body. How do you feel? Do you feel comfortable? And he continually said, no, I need more time. And I think they got themselves into, I guess, a little bit of trouble from the standpoint of putting out expectations based on what they had been told, but not necessarily based on what was going on in Chase Young's body or head or so on. This time, I think they're trying to put out no expectations, but, because of what happened last time, it's not saying it's backfiring because we don't have any expectations at this point, but at the same time, it's like, what's going on here? Is this a case of, at least this time, nobody is saying he has been cleared or that they expect him. It's still like, hey, he still needs to be cleared from a doctor. So I don't know. I mean, these injuries, like, like we want them to tell us as much as possible. There's privacy laws and all that, but we want them to tell us as much as possible. But when you get drips and drabs sometimes and it's told in an odd way, and then Ron, I guess, that kind of blows up the other day when he was asked about it, it's like, what is happening here? This feels weird again. And that's where it gets tricky. I mean, here's the thing, right? Pick almost any other player on the roster, this exact same thing happening. And we're like, all right, well, these things happen. But it's because it's Chase Young and what happened after that knee surgery and what happened last year, it's like, what are we doing here? And that's where I think it starts getting kind of weird.
Right, and it just feels like we've been doing this with Chase for a year and a half now, and at that point, you're just like, okay, we'll get out of this hellscape and cycle of not knowing what's going on, and Ron seeming to be mad about it. We'll see. Ben Standig from The Athletic with us here on the Hoffman Show. All right, let's run down some of the rest of the stuff that's happened over the last couple of days, and then I'm really excited to talk about the stuff you found in the agent survey. So, with F.A. Obata, was that a game injury? Like, what happened there? Because he seemed like if Chase wasn't going to be there, he seemed to be in line to be the starter. He had a phenomenal spring and summer. What happened with F.A. Obata that he's now going on IR?
Yeah, as a reminder, this goes with the Chase situation as well. They're not obligated, any team is not, no team is obligated to tell us what is going on with injuries until week one when they start putting out an injury report. So, that's partly why they were quiet on Chase. And in the case of Obata, we really didn't know anything. I mean, we had to ask Rivera today just what was the nature of the injury because we really didn't know that Obata was out. Sometimes these veterans skip a practice because, whatever, rest day, they got something to do occasionally. I don't mean that in a flippant way. I mean, sometimes they're excused. So we had no real idea that this was any kind of an issue. Rivera said that there's a patella issue, didn't really go into much more detail than that, other than to note that the other day he said Obata gave it a try in practice, and it really just was a struggle for him. So they decided he needs to let it calm down, give it some rest, and it doesn't sound like it's going to be long after the 4 weeks that he has to sit out because of going on IR, but they decided ultimately that they wanted to give him at least that much rest. So, yeah, I mean, that's what's so crazy about this D-line. It is still a strength and all that. But Chase Young, we just discussed. Obata is on IR. They put Fedarian Mathis on IR. John Allen is dealing with plantar fasciitis. I'm assuming he's going to play, but maybe he's not 100%. So all of a sudden this group, which is a deep group, is got a lot of pieces limited or out going into the season.
Definitely. Ben Standig with us from The Athletic here on the Hoffman Show. Last thing on the team before we get to the agent survey, like what's the schedule look like between now and opening day? Because I think this is also probably affected by the injuries, right? Like you want to get as much good practice as you can before the season, but it seems like right now this team is at a point, which by the way is kind of ironic considering how healthy they were for the first part of camp, and kind of the Logan Thomas injury felt like it opened the floodgates and just everyone else started to go down. But it seems like they're just trying to get back to full health before the game against Arizona. So how do they handle this next week and a half to try to get there as healthy as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically the team is taking, everybody's kind of going off. Like I was talking to John Dotson today, said he's going to go up to Penn State this weekend. And I think Sam Howell's going back to North Carolina. So from the media perspective, we're not out there again until Tuesday, which is, I think, the day the players are back. And then it's a regular Wednesday, Thursday, Friday schedule like you would for any other week. So, I don't know if it's anything different than it would have been otherwise. But, yeah, they're taking a couple days off, getting themselves right. I'm sure those who need rehab or deal with the medical staff will probably be there, I would assume. But, yeah, I mean, they're getting a couple days off before things get going here, which is, reasonable in general. But, to your point with not just those linemen, obviously Terry McLaurin still is probably the headliner of injured people that we just don't quite know what his deal will be with that sprained toe. So, yeah, there's some concerns for sure, and hopefully, this rest helps everybody get ready to go next week.
Yeah, definitely. McLaurin's still in a boot right now, but that's exactly where he should be. The boot is as much a precaution as anything. You can take the boot off, put a cleat on, and play next week. So we'll see if that's where Terry's at. All right, so you have done this now 5 years running, the agent survey. You surveyed 17 different agents on a variety of NFL topics, including some Commanders-adjacent things. What was the one that you were most excited to ask about? I thought a lot of the questions, I mean, all of them were fascinating in their own right, but like the running back thing I found specifically very, very interesting. You know, the varying thoughts on Goodell's future. There's a ton of different great questions you asked. What's the one that you were most intrigued by?
Yeah, I mean, I think the running back one probably, in part because it was sort of happening in real time. The discussion broadly about why don't running backs get paid anymore? Basically, what's the issue? And it was interesting because, look, these agents, obviously their job and those who represent running backs is to get them the most money possible. So I was curious, like, are they going to sit here and say the running backs are getting screwed? And they didn't actually. They basically all collectively said, look, we feel bad for them, but it's the free market, and it's no different than why do some stores thrive and other stores don't? Why? Look at my industry. Why are a lot of newspapers shuttering? And because people have chosen to find information in other ways, and it's just how it is with everything. But there was this disconnect, and the conversation publicly was interesting. So it was fun to see the agents' point of view on that. I think another one for me was the question about, is it time for the NFL to let outside money, private equity and or international groups like Saudi Arabia to come in and be owners, basically. The league has denied that for a variety of reasons, including, I think they want a front man. They want somebody to be in charge rather than just be like a consortium. But obviously the Saudi Arabia thing, right, has been huge in the news because of Live Tour and, the way they're attacking soccer and bringing major players there. And, the Live Tour, as we know, with those players got, crushed by everybody for taking the money. But what happens is things become normalized. And now in this survey, half the agents were like, not saying that they were condoning human rights violations, but they were basically saying, look, there's no point in denying this. The money is there. If the NFL is all about making money, it's probably going to happen at some point. Just get it done. And it's better for the players as well because it means more money coming in, if you have these groups that have a ton of money. And look what happened here with the Commanders, right? Josh Harris, as rich as he is, needed about 27 different partners, exaggerating, to help get it over the finish line. You wouldn't have that issue with some of these other scenarios. So I thought that was interesting just to hear. Some agents were appalled or opposed to that notion, but not everybody was.
Yeah, it was a really interesting mix. I thought there was definite thoughts all around. Of course, if the players get more money, that means that 3% or whatever percent the agent gets is more money too. So it's in their own self-interest on some level as well. Ben Standig with us, of course, writes for The Athletic here on the Hoffman Show, Team 980, the Odyssey app, YouTube. You know where to find us. Commanders adjacent, you asked about Eric Bieniemy, you asked about Dan Snyder, the entrance of one, the exit of another. Let's start off with Snyder, and then we'll finish off with EB. How real now that agents can be fully transparent about this? Not that they necessarily weren't before, but that he's like gone. How big of a hindrance to the football operation was Dan Snyder and his presence?
Yeah, I mean, pretty massive. When I started this survey, part of the reason why I did it was, the agents are at the intersection of the players, the coaching staff, the front office, because they have got to deal with all these different groups in favor of their client. So, when it comes to money, obviously there's nothing more, personal important than that. And Dan Snyder would be great at times because his impulsive nature would just say, yeah, here's all the money for, pick your player, Josh Norman. We want to trade for Donovan McNabb, whatever it is. But and some agents don't. It's flat admit they're just taking the money. They don't really care. Like neither do a lot of their clients. But the reality is, like, a lot of agents said, look, I gotta present my client with the best scenarios possible. And you want to go to find a team that's not just going to pay you, but be stable. Like if my guy thinks he's going to be played in X role for this team. I don't want it to be that the coach or the GM is fired within a year because, then who knows? And the Commanders obviously have never been stable under Dan. Even when a coach or two stays more than 3 or 4 years, it's always it feels very tenuous. And now they feel like a lot of these agents said, hey, now I can present Commanders to my clients in complete good faith. It's not just about, well, they're going to pay you the most. It's all the other things. So I think it is huge in that regard. I mean, obviously, we'll see what the Josh Harris group does. But in terms of the Dan Snyder part of it, that was for some of these agents, they were basically dealing with 31 NFL teams, not 32, in complete good faith because the Commanders were, just such a mess.
Yeah, wow, that's intense, and you always felt it covering the team, but your agent relationships are so good and have helped informed your reporting on so many things. It's good to see these quotes attributed to them, to the agents at large, obviously anonymous for the survey. The other guy you asked about was EB, and we'll wrap up with this, Ben. I think it's pretty interesting reading some of these quotes. There's one basically that's like everyone has hyped him up, reminds me of all the defensive coaches with the Patriots who left Belichick and failed. Everyone else seems to really love EB and thinks at worst he's in a tough situation, but he's a great coach and he'll either figure it out or he'll be fine somewhere else. There seems to be from what I can tell, and I'm curious to add the color that you have that doesn't necessarily make the piece to these conversations. It seems that Eric Bieniemy is as beloved around the NFL as he is in his early stint here in Washington.
Yeah, I think people in general want to be optimistic about others, right? I mean, I don't think people want to, crap on somebody or just say, oh, no chance, whatever. I don't know if there's a specific reason to do so. And in the case of Bieniemy, obviously he was part of a very successful situation in Kansas City. There's no denying the level of intensity that he brings. And if you're into football and sort of that old school coaching, that's going to absolutely, hit you in the right spot. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be hopeful with Bieniemy. But I think a lot of everybody also sort of acknowledge, no matter to what degree you are hopeful that it works out, you also have to admit it's hard to know because, Andy Reid was there. It's Andy Reid's offense. It's ultimately Andy Reid in the driver's seat, and Eric Bieniemy, even if he was calling plays for a moment, it's sort of like when you're learning how to drive a car and you're in the driver's seat, but the teacher's sitting in the other seat and they've got brakes on their end. That's kind of how ultimately it was with the Chiefs. Now there is no a supervisor looking over his shoulder who can ultimately say what to do. It's now on Bieniemy, and I think that's part of the intrigue. It has been such a fascinating and often polarizing conversation for the last few years. Now that's going to be lifted. Now we will see, can Eric Bieniemy do this? Of course, Sam Howell's a huge part of that, the offensive line and all that, but he's got the chance to call the plays, to run the offense, to put his stamp on it. And I think to that extent, that's a lot of where the optimism comes from. Both some people think he can do it, but also it's almost like get that gift with the popcorn, sitting there, let's go. I want to see this already.
Yeah, that's similar to some of the comments that you got about Rivera. Let's see how it goes. There's a lot. Josh Harris, to an extent, some of the comments. Let's see how it goes. Big, let's see how it goes year here in Washington. Ben Standig will have a front row seat to how it goes. Nice enough to join us with regularity here on the Team 980. Ben, great work on the agent survey. Everyone should go read it in The Athletic, and we'll talk to you soon. And I might see you out there in Ashburn next week.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend, guys.
All right, thanks. See you. That's Ben Standig, everybody. We haven't had Standig on in a hot second. It's because my man has been battling since at least the Baltimore joint practices. His voice has been not his friend. Sounding a little bit better finally. I hope he's feeling better. But Ben Standig, we appreciate his time and look forward to having him back on a more regular basis. All right, when we get back, actually, Anthony and I are going to react to some of the other parts of this agent survey. Great stuff from Standig. That's next here on the Team 980. how nervous were you to interview Josh Harris?
Dude, that's a really funny story. Like, he was sitting there, he's sitting in the front row. And I was like, man, should we try to get him? And so I just went up and I was like, hey, man, I know the security guard that was with him. Like, it's good to know security guards. And he was like, yeah, man. Like, hey, Josh, this is Logan Paulson. He works for the team. He was like, hey, Josh, really nice to meet you. Would you mind doing like a 2-question interview at halftime? And then he goes, just keep it general. And yeah, no problem. He was so kind and generous with his time. And like, it was great.
And I thought it was so great that he was just like, no, I'm going to sit right there. I'm going to get kind of a feel of the sidelines. But especially when it's raining, like, I thought it was great that he was on the sideline.
Again, as a former player, it felt really cool in the rain to see him hanging out, him and his boy. I got a ton of respect for that. And, he was great in the interview, really accommodating. So thank you, Mr. Josh Harris. But yeah, man, I was a little nervous.
So, you are, of course, listening to and watching The Hoffman Show on Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube and Twitter as well. Let's get into this agent survey now. Ben Standig has done this for 5 years, and I think, I will say this is like a genius-level move from Standig. You're always looking for reasons to talk to sources, and, of course, agents are sources for everybody, and people that know things and people that can give you information because they've got a lot of information. And so to be like, hey, I'm doing this thing. You want to tell me all the information? I'm going to publish it anonymously. Genius level move. Stroke of genius. But it's also incredibly insightful. Anthony, you want to start with the Commander stuff or do you want to start with the league stuff? Because I think there's interesting things in both places.
We can start Lee and then transition over to the Commanders.
So he wrote this in 2 parts. The first part was league stuff. The first one was about the running back market, and I thought the answers were fascinating because I kind of expected someone to be like, this is unfair, whatever. And there was like 1 or 2 people that were kind of like that, but even they were like, yeah, they're just screwed. And, offering varying levels of solutions that are possible or not. I do think that the best one is getting rid of the franchise tag. That certainly would be helpful. But generally speaking, it seems like even NFL agents are like, what are you going to do? The market be marketing. And it's not good for running backs.
It's terrible, man. And I think I was having this discussion with Z, and I was telling him, running backs, they got to bet on themselves, man. I think they should, again, go in there, try to get a solid base salary, but much of it, make it incentive-laden,
Yeah, I thought this was interesting. A couple of different versions of this quote. This is tied into astronomical salaries for quarterbacks. The fix is tying QB salaries to percentage of the cap, either for the individual or the entire room. Otherwise, you have to steal money from somewhere. There's other folks that are basically like, yeah, because quarterbacks are getting paid so much, there's not enough money for everyone else, and running backs are the room that gets squeezed. And I don't know if I've talked about this on this show yet, but Logan has a theory on the running back thing that I thought was spot on and interesting. In middle school, what position does the best player play?
In middle school?
Yeah. Running back, right?
Yeah, running back, they get the ball.
Yeah, because it's easy to hand them the ball and just have them run around, and there's not enough good athletes on the field to catch them. So the middle school coach is like, hey, little Johnny, you go back there and play running back. So by the time you get to high school, best player, probably still your running back. It depends. If you got an all-state receiver on your team that's going to go D1, sure. Anthony's like, that was me. No, it wasn't.
No,
You did not go D1. You went D1, but it wasn't for football.
No.
It was for broadcasting, and look where you are now.
Yes.
So you've got that reality that, like, from the very youth levels of football, the best players are running backs, and they come up as running backs. And so there's kind of an overflow. And even when you chop down the number that go from high school to college to pro, you have some of the best athletes in the country / in the world playing running back. And so there's an overflow of them available. That's bad for supply-demand balance. And thus, you can find a guy like Derek Gore to be your 4th practice squad running back. And if all of a sudden you need to bring him up, he could rush for 130 yards if he gets the right day and good blocking and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a reality of the situation that's unfortunate. And I think agents definitely get that, and that doesn't necessarily mean that their team are not fired up for Jonathan Taylor. I think one of the interesting things that comes out of this agent survey is how many agents are like, yep, Jim Irsay really screwed this up. He embarrassed himself. You then get down to the part of the agent survey that says, hey, Washington is no longer, if you agree that they're no longer the NFL's most unstable franchise, who is? 2 idiots, I'm just going to say it, 2 idiots still said the Commanders. Like, if you look at what's happening in Arizona and you look at what's happening in Indianapolis and you think that this place with Harris in charge is worse than that, I do not know what to tell you. Like, you just refuse to update your software. Like, to enter your password, let it refresh overnight. You'll have a new opinion by tomorrow. Cardinals got 9 in that. Colts got 4. I think it's easily the Cardinals. And by the way, Anthony, I know it's not going to rise to the level of what happened with Snyder because the stuff that happened was so salacious. And it happened in, let's be frank, in a big-time East Coast market, specifically the one where Congress is at. But the stuff that happened in Arizona behind the scenes, it's really bad. There was a deposition that came out this week about how, was it not Vance Joseph? Steve Wilkes. Joseph was the DC there under Cliff Kingsbury. But remember, Steve Wilkes was there for a hot second as the head coach for 1 year. And when Steve Keim, the GM, was suspended, I believe it was Wilkes who said, yeah, they gave me a burner phone to communicate with him. It's like, oh, so you got around the suspension. Like, that's not going to sit well at 345 Park Avenue in New York, the NFL's office. Like, there's a lot of other, like, really bad stuff, you know, NFL-wise and, like, legal morality-wise that happened in Arizona. That place is a mess, and the Bidwells are a disaster. And, you know, I don't think that they're going to lose the team, but they're probably benefiting from the fact that they don't have the fan base like they have here. It is a West Coast, you know, and not LA team that doesn't get paid as much attention to. But, man, if you're in the league, you know. I did enjoy this one, though. Cowboys, nepotism at its finest. I know they're a valuable franchise, and they have a good quarterback, and they win games, but they're run very poorly. Little Cowboys. Shot. I actually don't know that I agree with that, though, all things considered. Like, yeah, Jerry does crazy stuff, and, like, as long as you can manage the Jerry media circus, and, you know, Stephen Jones does, like, a weekly radio hit as well. Like, Will McClay's in charge of their talent stuff. I think Mike McCarthy's not a great NFL head coach, but, like, he runs, I assume, a professional operation. I don't know, man. They got nice, shiny stuff everywhere. That's cool. By the way, coming up, pick 6 at 6. FedEx Field's getting shinier. We'll cover that on top of some other stuff. Top storylines of the day. On the Commander side of the agent survey, it's really interesting to see the comments on Bieniemy. This one caught my eye. Really interesting that he chose to go to Washington knowing that this is a make-or-break year, arguably for the entire franchise. I love Ron, but I think Bieniemy will bring a tremendous presence and intensity that is probably needed. He'll now also get credit if warranted. We'll find out once and for all, are you a good play caller? Can you run an offense? Do you know how to adjust, exploit weaknesses? It's all on EB. I'm pro Eric. This, you know, the tough and rigid approach is great, but what happens when you have basically a rookie QB instead of Mahomes? How does EB handle adversity? And that is a big question. I think for him this year and for this team this year is like, okay, training camp's been pretty straightforward. You're in total control. There's no scoreboard. When you're down 13-0 and Sam's thrown a bad pick and, you know, someone fumbled, you got dumb penalties that killed another drive. How do you go? I will say, my prediction is Bieniemy will handle that well. I think his, like, laser focus, his precision, his attention to detail, those are the kinds of things of just focusing on the right things that get you out of those kinds of ruts. But his intensity when people are upset is going to be something that's interesting to watch because we have seen blow-ups on the sideline with him and like Mahomes and whoever, Kelsey before. If that happens, it's easy when you're the Chiefs and that happens 3 times a season, maybe. If it happens every other week, how does that play over the course of the season? I don't know. And I don't know that it will, but it's something that in the back of my mind, I go, all right, if this is going to go sideways, how does it go sideways? And that is one of the ways in which it goes sideways.
Yeah, and I sort of kind of wish we got to see that side of EB in the show Quarterback. We didn't really get too much of EB in Quarterback, but I think they pose a great question, and, I think him already getting, backlash and the way he's responded to it, it just shows I think he'll be able to, withstand, whatever happens with Sam and, being able to coach him through it. And I think he's the guy for the job, man.
I do too. And I think Sam's demeanor is a good fit with EB. Mm-hmm. Like, Sam's the kind of guy that you can yell at.
Yep.
Which EB needs that kind of guy because that's, he's, as has been said a lot, he's a lot more than people. Yeah, he's a lot more than yelling at guys.
Yeah.
But he will yell at you.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to be able to take that, listen to what he's saying, ignore occasionally how he's saying it, and move forward within the game. And then y'all can talk about it in a calmer demeanor afterwards when the adrenaline's not flowing and there's not a clock ticking. And Sam seems like the kind of guy that can do that. So that's definitely a positive. Whether for Josh Harris or any new NFL owner, what advice would you have? This, I thought, some good answers from the agents on behalf of the people, a.k.a. us. DC/y'all, the fans. Don't waste goodwill, act swiftly, and appeal to the fan base. They look ready. I think that is something that, you've got goodwill built up. You can build up more, but the longer you wait, and the more, by the way, we always talk about, well, winning will solve everything. Yeah, but what happens if you lose? Like right now, you were able to do not whatever you want, but basically whatever you want,
Mm-hmm.
And you're able to be celebrated for it. Like, if they're 0-4, God forbid, knock on wood. I apologize for putting that out there in the universe. But if they're 0-4 and they announce stadium renovations, there's going to be a large group of people that's like, they're focused on the wrong things. And it's like, I don't know. They need to upgrade FedEx, and I don't think that that's preventing them from winning football games, but sure, yell. Right now, it's like, I literally saw a tweet from someone earlier. Dan Snyder didn't, actually, I think it was Galdi. Galdi was like, Dan Snyder didn't upgrade FedEx until he owned the team for 21 years, and Josh Harris did it in 6 weeks. He's putting $40 million in. So, that's going to be received well. The goodwill. Act swiftly, do the things, buy yourself even more goodwill. Build a cushion. I think that's smart. I think that's good advice. The best owners own, coaches coach, scouts scout. Let your people do their work and take your time to get to know the league, empower your people, and for this specific place, be a good person. That alone would be an upgrade there. I can say these agents had nothing good to say about Dan Snyder. Not that there's anything particularly good to say, but very specifically, they had a lot of bad things to say about the man. Please let the door hit you on the way out.
Did you see the part where they said they can now evaluate more than just money, or I guess for free agents anyway? That was my favorite part of the entire article, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like, hey, it confirms the Washington tax.
Yep.
Right? For years, it's always like, hey, if Washington's going to sign a guy, they've got to pay more than everyone else, which kills your cap. It's a terrible way to have to recruit players because then you're basically money whipping guys into being here. They don't actually want to be here. And now it's like, oh, yeah, no, I want to go play for EB or I want to go play with John Allen. That they seem to be growing things. I want to be a part of the team that reignites the fan base. There's reasons to come here now besides they paid you more than everybody else. And that is a great thing.
Great thing.
All right, we'll see how it plays out in the actual football. When we get back, though, Anthony, we've rearranged the show a little bit, so we kind of have a choice.
I think we should go story time.
Story time? Okay, story time. Wes Hall and I played tennis. How'd it go? We'll tell you next.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
How about some surprise moves in Major League Baseball, including a couple of former Nationals? Lucas Giolito, remember him way back in the day? He's now going to be a Cleveland Guardian after he was waived by the Los Angeles Angels earlier in the week. The Angels, of course, wanted to make a run at the playoffs with Shohei Ohtani. They didn't trade him. All of a sudden, they're like, this is not going well. And they waived 6 players Tuesday. That included Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez, both of whom are now signing with the Guardians. As for the Nationals themselves, they play down the street tonight, Nats Park, back home against Miami. It's a 7:05 first pitch. How about a big NFL contract? And not some of the big names that everyone has kind of been waiting on, your Bosas, your guys like that. Now, it's TJ Hawkinson. He's back on the practice field with the Vikings Thursday, having put a summer's worth of injuries and illness behind him. That's the lead from ESPN.com. Also helps that he's got 66 million new dull hairs, up to 68.5 over a 4-year contract extension. That is the biggest for a tight end in NFL history. That is what's trending. I'm Craig Hoffman on the Team 980. Team 980 always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Top of the hour, pick 6 at 6. You know the drill. We pick the 6 most important Commander storylines of the day. We talk about them. You'll hear from Ron Rivera, and we'll give you the details on the new stadium upgrades coming to FedEx Field. However, though, Anthony finally got to do it this morning. Finally got to scratch an itch that I've had since the wife and I watched Breakpoint on Netflix a couple of weeks ago. I was like, damn, I really miss playing tennis. I miss playing basketball too, but playing basketball is a little bit harder. You got to find a lot of people. Tennis, you got to find a buddy that plays. And this weekend, we were at the Mystics Aces game, saw our guy Wes Hall, and we were talking about U.S. Open tennis. And he's like, oh, do you play? And I was like, I haven't in a long time, but I really want to. Apparently, he and his wife have been going to hit around with frequency. So me and our guy, Wes Hall, went and played a little tennis this morning.
Yes, sir. And how did you do?
Just fine. I remember how to play, which is saying something because I haven't played in a long time. Rachel and I hit around a year and a half ago, probably, and that was probably the first time I'd hit it around in 2 or 3 years. This is probably the second time I touched a racket in 5 years, let's say.
In 5 years, it's crazy.
But I played when I was a kid. Like, I had good tennis lessons when I was young. And here's the thing, Anthony.
Please.
Learn everything you can while you're young. Which, to most people listening, I'm sorry, it's already too late. To the 8-year-old in the back seat, learn everything you can now. Because it will stick with you. Far better than anything you do as an adult. I am trying to learn French as an adult. French is very hard. It'd be way easier if I was 6. Very difficult. But I get out there, can still hit a forehand.
Okay.
Can still slice a backhand. Can still do all the things I could do when I was 8.
So you're telling me that playing tennis is like riding a bike?
Apparently.
It's super simple.
Now, look, we didn't have a lot of long rallies.
Okay.
No one should confuse what Wes and I did today for high-level tennis.
That's what.
Although I will say, boy, when Wes gets his serve in, I didn't return a single one of them. Luckily, he didn't get very many in on his first serve. But he serves like 120. Like
he's tall as a mug.
Yeah, he's super tall, very strong, and so he had a one particular game where he got like 3 in a row, and it was just ace, ace, ace.
Good gracious.
Unfortunately, that was only one. Unfortunately for him, that was one of 2 games that he won.
Were you able to touch the serve, or was it like
I could touch
a clean ace?
No, I could touch it. It didn't get returned in the court of play.
Yeah.
And the thing was, like, it was so inconsistent that there was definitely 1 or 2 where I was kind of you were reminded that you have to focus on every single point.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be locked in just in case. And it was hard to get a beat on it because I didn't get enough reps at it. But I still won. We played 1 set. I beat him 6-2.
That's tough there. Dang,
Yeah.
6-2.
Yeah, which is also saying something because your boy got broken at love in the first game.
Dang.
I couldn't get it going, and I was like, oh great. While we were just hitting around, he was sandbagging me. Turns out, flipped it around.
How do you think you'd fare against me?
When was the last time you played tennis?
It's a great question.
Not recently.
No. I've never played tennis, actually.
Never?
I've hit a ball.
Okay.
I've never played tennis, though.
I think I'd do pretty well.
Okay. I like your confidence.
I think I'd do pretty well.
Craig, you'd be surprised. So the one time I did hit a ball, I was pretty good.
You realize you have to, like, get the ball in the court.
That, too. Yeah. I was also serving.
Yeah. Getting in serves is hard. That was actually the biggest surprise. I wasn't, like, going for broke. I wasn't trying to, like, hit as hard as I could. I was like, I'm gonna like 70% every single one so that I minimize my double faults.
Smart. So you were out there playing chess.
Yeah, I was trying to.
Yeah.
Where Wes was like, if I do not get this first serve in, I am screwed.
Pretty much.
And that was his strategy. And he definitely aced me a couple times, but he's got to get he's working on it. He's working his way back.
Yeah.
I'm not like trying to say this braggadociously. We would have had story time, and if he had wiped me 6-0, we would be doing the same segment. Just have a different score. So we're excited to get back out there next week and play a little bit more.
There we go. get better each and every day.
Yeah, or once a week,
Oh, yeah,
I do.
that too.
I should see how much it costs to like rent a court for an hour and get like a ball machine. If anyone's got any information on that, or if there's any tennis pros out there listening that want to give your boy a lesson, holler at me. There's plenty of ways to get in touch with the show. HoffmanShow.com. There's an email me link.
I might know a place.
Oh, okay. Maybe I can see
This is serious also. I really might know a place.
Okay. All right. Well, you're easy to talk to off the air. I just walk around and show up in your studio. I'm going to go talk to Anthony about tennis lessons, and we're going to come back, and we're going to do the Pick Six at 6. They tell us we should not really engage in certain parts of the content process. We should definitely post our content. We should tease our content. Hey, tell the people when things are happening on the show. Put that out there on social media. Then make sure you share the content afterwards. But definitely do not engage with the people who comment on it. It's the deepest, darkest underbelly of the internet. No. Do not read the comments. But every single week, 5:30 on a Wednesday, what do we do, Anthony Haney?
We read
Yep.
those comments, baby.
I'm so glad that you gave us a really good one there, because next week we're gonna have a fancy new intro for this. We just got the big voice guy, old Jim Cutler, to do some stuff for us. And in my head, the fancy intro includes Anthony going, read those comments, and he just gave me the material I needed to work with. He didn't even know that. You didn't know that, Anthony. Tell the people you didn't know that.
I did not at all.
But next week, you bet your bottom dollar you're going to see it. It's a running bit on the show, but also like an actual thing. I'm trying to learn French. My wife and I are going to Paris next year for the Olympics, so I'm trying to learn French. It's incredibly difficult. I'm very bad at it. Tips for someone learning French. You did the reverse. For people that don't know, you started as a French speaker, and I was reading on Wikipedia, so I don't know if it's true, but also Haitian Creole, first two languages, and then had to learn English, which I know is very, very difficult to learn when it's not your native language. French, English, they don't seem compatible. What's your tip for me as I try to learn French?
I would say watch movies in French with English subtitles. That's what I did. I watched a lot of movies in French, but I had the English. No, I watched a lot of movies in English with the French subtitles. So like movies, music, it's kind of something that's like easy, like on the brain. It's not too much information, but you can still enjoy it and you can see the conversation, because that's the hardest part. Learning like a little word, like to say like, hey, my name is this or whatever, that's easy. But holding a conversation, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, right now I'm really just trying to master, like, I'm American, do you speak English? Because I think in Paris I can get away with that.
Yeah, so je suis américain.
Yeah.
Et je ne parle pas français.
See, even the way you said that is not the way Duolingo says to say that. So I'll just have to come back to my new French tutor, Benjamin Standig. BSJ, appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Sure.
Tomorrow, Clinton Yates on the show. Ashley Hatch from the Washington Spirit on the show tomorrow as well. Working on a few other things, too. I'll be a jam-packed Friday. 1 hour left, though, on this Thursday. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It is 6 o'clock, which often means we do this right here.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
I'm going to be their biggest and harshest critic, but I'm also their number one fan.
That's right, the 6 biggest storylines of the day from the Commanders. Storyline number 1, Chase Young. Yikes. Multiple reports. The first from Ben Standig. That Chase not cleared for contact yet by the doctors. He's been practicing, but obviously that is on a limited basis. Team does not have to give a full injury report until next week. But Ron Rivera finally gave a little bit, kind of ish, of an update today.
The big thing I can tell you is the guy's practicing, doing everything we need him to do right now as he's getting ready for the opener. I have, no idea what the doctor's going to do, but I do know right now that he's told him he can continue to progress and get himself ready to go. So until then, there's nothing that we can tell you, nothing we can say, and, we'll have the medical report come out on Wednesday.
We talked about this off the start of the show. It's incredibly frustrating. Like, this whole thing, it just seems like it's lingering far longer than it should. And I think the other frustrating part of this is that it feels like we've been in a Chase Young injury holding pattern. When will he come back for now at this point over a full year? I mean, remember, there was intrigue going into training camp last year of whether he would be ready to start training camp. Then it was like, no, he's not going to be ready to start camp. Oh, is he going to start the regular season on PUP? Oh, yeah, he is going to do that. Okay, now he's eligible. Is he ready to come? No, he's going to be a couple more weeks. Oh, they've activated him. Now, whoa. He's going to use this full 3-week period. Don't get too ahead of yourself. Okay, he's healthy going into the offseason. 4 snaps into the Cleveland game. Right back to when is he going to be ready again? And I think that's I'm sure grating on Ron. I'm sure it's grating on Chase. Like, it just sucks for everyone involved. But unfortunately, we still don't know what Chase's status will be week 1. We'll go on from there. That, of course, leads us, though, to...
Number 2.
We're not doing this bit again. Oh, no. There shall be
Number 2. Number 2.
No.
Number 2.
Nope. I don't know how to turn it off, Anthony. I'm gonna have to do the thing again where I pull up a random soundbite. And you know what? The random soundbite I'm going to pull up is pretty funny.
It's time I'm going to kick that football clear to the moon.
Because this is what I feel like.
It's time.
But I can't turn it off.
It's time I'm going to kick that.
Oh, there. I think I did it. So now it's...
Number 2.
Yay!
There it is, though. Problem solver.
Whoever's turning on loop mode, we're in a fight. Yikes, man. All right. Anyway, we were talking about Chase Young. He may not be out there. We know F.A. Obata is on IR. Big Phil on IR. John Allen dealing with plantar fasciitis. So, Ron Rivera, how do you feel about your defensive line with all of that?
But with those 2 guys going on, we're going to count on a veteran guy in Abdullah Anderson to step up and help out. And then Benning Patai, I hope I said that right. I apologize, Benning. Is a guy that we may have to pop up depending on what happens. We're going to rely a little bit on the young guys, to help round out the rest of that group. So, we like the backups. We think James Smith-Williams and Casey are very capable guys. A year ago, again, when those guys were playing a lot, they contributed to where we ended up as a defense. So feel good about what we've done, and just knowing that, we have a chance to get eventually at some point getting both FA and Fidarian out there. I'm pretty comfortable with that.
I do think they have enough depth where they can sustain a lot of injuries to this group. That's the good news. The bad news is they are sustaining a lot of injuries. And obviously, if John is not out there, that makes things very different for a James Smith-Williams or a Casey Toohill. It's one thing when you're the fourth guy. It's different when you're the third. Like, you can't double team everyone, but you can always slide the line to one side, and now all of a sudden you got a numbers advantage on Sweat and Payne, who often line up right next to each other. Now, could they move Montez around and try to keep Payne on one side and Montez on the other to keep one away from the slide at all times? Yes, there's other protections, obviously, that teams can go to that can help mitigate some of the effectiveness of those two guys. But if John's out there too, like, that becomes harder. And a guy like James or Casey is always going to get one-on-ones. And they've obviously got the young guys as well. And you think that with some regularity, they're good enough to win those one-on-ones. But it really, to me, is Allen's the biggest one. If he can get back out there, they're fine. If he's out, more than one game against Arizona, now we're talking about this defense playing a little bit differently, and maybe some of the calls and things get different. Some of the packages get different, but it's already going to have an effect. And I just, Abdullah Anderson's really good. He's not John Allen. I should say he had a really good summer. He's not John Allen. We'll see how he does against, top line guys. It's a different speed. It's a different skill set. There's game planning happening. It's very, very different than a guy who's been around a little bit but hasn't exactly stuck on a bunch of rosters in Abdullah Anderson versus looking good against the threes when you're out there running around in training camp. All right, onward we go.
Number 3.
Ron is, I always love when Ron gets to psychoanalyze himself. And he was asked this question, so he answered it. Long, introspective answer, as he tends to do, on how he balances being an optimist while still being critical. Because he is a guy in the media that always seems to, put his best foot forward.
I always ask myself that question. I do, John. I ask myself, am I seeing what I really am seeing, or is this what I hope to see? And I do. I sit there and I watch the tape from practice, and when I see those flashes that tell you this is what we've been working toward, you feel real comfortable, real good about it. The tempo was outstanding on both sides of the ball. Pause to optimistic, but again, I'm going to sit there and ask myself what I want to see, or am I seeing what's really out there?
Am I optimistic that I was just not hearing the audio skip all over the place, Anthony, or is that just we got a bad recording situation?
I think it was just skipping.
Was that on our end, or was that the original? Because I don't think Ron was remixing himself live.
I couldn't tell you.
All right, well, let's just hope that it was the recording and none of the rest of the sound bites are like that, and that our whole computer system isn't crumbling down. Although with how the show started today, would feel kind of appropriate.
Yep.
As for the substance of that, I think when he says, am I seeing what I hope to see, or am I seeing what I'm actually seeing? You have these horrendous flashbacks to Carson Wentz. And, what was it like when Ron was sitting there famously, I'm the guy that watched the bleeping tape. And it's like, were you in optimist Ron mode while you were watching that tape? Because that would explain a lot, sir. But it is a really hard thing because we all have biases. We all, and especially the worst one we all have is confirmation bias. If we want something to happen or we think something, it's very easy to see the thing that we want, and as opposed to being truly unbiased. If we want this guy to be well, we look for the areas where he's excelling and we minimize in our minds the areas where he's not. At same token, if we think a player stinks, it's like, look at him doing the bad stuff, and you ignore, he got lucky on that, or you just, the equation isn't exactly balanced in your head like it is in real life. It's a really hard skill, but it's the best are able to do it. And Ron certainly at times has done that well, and I think on some other very, very important times has not done that particularly well.
Number 4.
This is something that I think he has done well. The culture of the team was something that, in fairness to the people that were here before, mainly Kyle Smith, had started to turn towards the end of Gruden's era in the locker room. It had nothing to do with Gruden. It had nothing to do with Bruce Allen. They just started drafting Alabama guys, basically, and those guys are built a little bit different. You had a guy like McLaurin, and it's something that I know was very, very important to Kyle, who was running the personnel department in those final couple of years and built the foundation that gave them Montez Sweat, John Allen, Deron Payne, Terry McLaurin. Again, we've said this before, the 5 best players on the team all predate Ron Rivera. And those were guys that Kyle Smith and his scouts, so many of whom are still with the team, they put that together. And Ron has certainly continued that. That's not to take all the credit away from him and the Martys and what they've built, but character is something that is important within a locker room. And so when you get guys that are super talented that maybe might need a little bit more maintenance, let's call it, how do you balance bringing those guys in versus saying, nah, that guy's not a fit with our culture? Here's Rivera.
Well, you always think that, if you have a good locker room, you can have whoever you want in there because the players will handle it. And, we've done that. We've been around that before. And I think our locker room is in a very good place. I think having guys come in and get them to understand what our guys are all about, what we're all about, what our culture is. And if it's strong and it's sturdy, it could withstand that. It can adapt. We can get players to adapt to it. And those that just won't or just can't, you do have to move on. You really do. Bill Walsh used to say, there's a put-up rule. You can put up with only so much. But the reason you can is because you've got a good, strong locker room. I was paraphrasing there, but, along those lines, that's basically what it's about. Because the room is good, it's strong, then you can bring a guy in that, is going to have to learn to assimilate, and for the most part, they will.
That's 100% true. If you're going in that D-line room and you don't do things the way John Allen wants them to be done, you're probably going to hear about it. Good luck being a goofball in a room where not that these guys don't have fun, but like Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson are serious people when it comes to the craft. If you want to goof around all the time and not do the work, like you're not going to last there very long because they're going to come to you and be like, you're going to do things our way. And if you continue to refuse, they're going to go to the coach and be like, get that guy out of here. That's how it works. When I used to cover the Mavericks in Dallas, I'm pretty sure this is where this came from. So I want to say it was like a Donnie Nelson. Maybe it was a Rick Carlisle. It was something. It might have actually been a Cuban, honestly. I think actually it was Cuban, who had a one a-hole rule. You could have one bleep show in the locker room. And obviously a football locker room of 53 plus practice squad, et cetera, is different than a basketball locker room of, 15 to 18 guys, depending on if you count the two-way guys and who's around. But, that was his rule. And actually, I think what they called it, they said their knucklehead rule. You could have one knucklehead. So for them, at the time, the years that I was covering it, Monte Ellis was kind of their knucklehead. Like, Monte wasn't a bad dude at all, but he was a little quirky and required some maintenance, and he'd take some bad shots, and he would do some things that drove you nuts on occasion. But he was their guy, and they would deal with it. When they won the championship, Jason Terry, little bit of a wild card. And it wasn't that he was a bad dude. JT is actually a phenomenal guy. I got to do a lot of stuff with him after he retired and started getting into media down there. Great dude. But Jet's a bit of a loose cannon. He was their knucklehead. So they had one knucklehead, but they had Dirk Nowitzki and Tyson Chandler and those guys, Jason Kidd, and they were able to manage it. And depending on how strong your locker room is and how many knuckleheads you have in it, you can manage that. And I don't know specifically what that question was about and who the knuckleheads are on this team potentially, but they definitely have the locker room to handle one or two. And that goes to the leadership that they have, not with the coaching staff, although they do have some strong leaders, EB certainly chief amongst them, but they have in the locker room and the ability to police themselves. Pick 6 here on the Hoffman Show. The 6 most interesting storylines of the day from Ashburn regards to the Commanders. Ron asked about Jennifer King today, the assistant running backs coach, and how she's grown in her time now. I think it's year 4 in the NFL. This will be
number 5.
I think her overall football acumen. I think she gets it. She gets the game. She's been in several different offenses and she's learned several different styles. And as you watch her growth and her connection with the players, it is outstanding. And I really do think that, at some point she's going to get an opportunity to have her own group. I really do. She's very bright, very intelligent, and you see it and you feel it. And when you talk football with her, she enjoys it. That's one of her passions. So it's been really neat to see the growth and development of her.
And, of course, Ron talks to other coaches around the NFL. There's a lot more female coaches now in the league, and it's only a matter of time until one of them becomes a full-time position coach, and then a matter of time after that till one becomes a coordinator, hopefully sooner rather than later, just because if you think that the best minds on anything are amongst one group of people, like you're just limiting the talent pool, and that's very silly. If we want to see the best, then there should be more women coaching the game, because and some of them have played at various levels, but certainly you don't have to be a great player to be a great coach, and often really great players are terrible coaches. So people who want to make those kinds of arguments, I don't think we need to really hash that out. We don't need to really honor them because they're not very valid. So, Ron, on if head coaches around the league, discuss the growing number of female coaches throughout the NFL.
When we're at the combine, there's opportunity to talk about how some of these women have done and taking it to the next level, and I think the big thing everybody should understand is the thing I really appreciate the players. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are, or where you're from. What matters is, can you help me get better as a player and as a person? And I think that's one of the things that's really helped in the development and growth of women coaches today is the players. They show a tremendous amount of respect for who they are and for the fact that they love this game. And if they can help them get better, man, they're going to listen. And we see that. We see that with Jennifer, and that's been something that's been outstanding.
There's no doubt players have led on this. They just don't care. Can you help me get better? And at the end of the day, is it nice sometimes to have a guy who's played in the Super Bowl? Yeah. And if we're being realistic in the NFL, there's never going to be, at least I don't see a future anytime in our lifetime where there's going to be a woman who's had that experience of playing in the NFL and can talk about her playing days and in a Super Bowl, for instance, in the way that I think, like Randy Jordan. I believe he went to the Super Bowl when he was with the Raiders back in the day, or Rivera with the '85 Bears. Like, okay, fine. But there's plenty of guys with those stories who suck at coaching and who would be terrible coaches or who are terrible coaches. And at the end of the day, players just want to know, do you care about me, my career, and can you help me get better right now? And Jennifer King has done that for the running back group here in Washington. AG has talked about it quite a bit over his couple of years here. And there's plenty of other female coaches around the league doing the same that have helped players get better. And if you keep doing that, you're going to keep elevating up the totem pole, and position coaches, coordinators, and eventually head coach, hopefully coming soon. All right, last but not least,
number 6.
Upgrades are coming to FedEx Field, $40 million worth of them. Josh Harris and company have apparently identified the areas where they can make immediate improvements, which will be ready, many of them by opening day. Some of them have been in the works. There's new signage around the stadium. There's already previously announced there'd be new sound system. There's new video boards. There's LED lights. There's all kinds of kind of upgrades like that. The aesthetic upgrades is the word I'm looking for. But then you also got things like 12 new food vendors. Anthony, we got excitement level for these 12 food vendors. Hill Country Barbecue.
Okay.
Like it. Pardon My Cheesesteaks.
Intrigued.
DC Half Smokes.
I'm definitely there.
Obviously. Paisano's Pizza.
Okay.
Only if Doc Walker is the one serving me. Or Ryan Kerrigan or Santana Moss. Any of the three from the most recent commercial. I think Kerrigan's busy during the game. Anyway, Washington Grill. Capital Kettle Corn. Fuku by David Chang, as in Momofuku. I know where I'm going. Hell yeah. By the way, you ever watch Ugly Delicious on Netflix?
Who?
Ugly Delicious?
No.
David Chang's show on Netflix. Fantastic.
I have not watched that.
And Chang is from the DC area. We didn't see if we can get him on the show. Why? Because we can. Or we'll see if we can. Visitor's Dog, Loaded Mac, Jerry's Seafood, PMC Cheesesteak Nachos. You got cheesesteaks and cheesesteak nachos, Swizzler, and then DMV Crab Rolls. New location in Section 102.
That sounds very tasty.
I think I'm getting hungry. I'm just saying. All right. That is... I think there was one... Oh, there was... The other thing that was with the upgrades while we're on here and we have an extra 30 seconds, they also have new theme suites. And I didn't fully get to read the release and understand kind of what is going into all these theme suites. But there's like one that's got like, it have like an Xbox and stuff in it. There was like, I don't know. It sounded very interesting. I don't know whether it's like you can buy the suite for the game or it's somewhere that fans can go visit, but like cool, innovative, creative stuff that is going to give FedEx Field a little bit more personality.
Yeah.
We love that.
We love to hear it, man.
I'm curious to see what else they do during the year. Like, is there going to be an opportunity to upgrade things during the season? And then obviously what happens next offseason? That's the big one. But $40 million with upgrades to FedEx Field coming. Hopefully they also spend money on people to direct parking in and out of the stadium. I'm terrified of week 1. I'm hoping that I won't have to deal with traffic because I'm showing up late because I've got to do a pregame show that goes up until kickoff. But we'll see. All right, that's Pick 6. 6 biggest storylines of the day in Commanders land. When we get back, a little of this, a little of that, and a little of that other thing here on the Team 980.
Kevin Sheehan.
Say what you want about Jake. Like, this is speaking from my personal experience. When I got to play the last half of a preseason game, I knew I was going to dominate that son of a gun. Because there's a lot of dudes out there who don't play football, who aren't going to be playing football here in 3 weeks. And you can get after those guys. And I think there's a little bit of that going on. And I will say this team and the depth of this team also supports them at a really high level. Like, that third string offensive line did a great job. The third string wide receivers like Bryson Tremaine, Tinsley, name your guy. Those guys are good football players that deserve a shot at playing in the NFL. They've got guys that are good around him. And usually that's not the situation with a third quarterback, so they don't look as good. But here that they did a great job of insulating him and supporting him, and he had a good performance.
I'll even put Fromm's name down over here in this other column as guys that we would like to keep on the practice squad, and we'll see 100%. How many we wind up with.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. That's a guy you want in your program, you want in your building. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that's what you want.
Ron's initial instinct was play Taylor for a series or two and then go to Sam. So you would have seen him. He just wouldn't have started the game, which, you know, look, Logan said at the time he understood it, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, Logan doesn't know what he's talking about. But I didn't subscribe to that theory. I will say that.
Yeah.
You know, you want to take the pressure off, like, what? No, I want to see if he can handle it. And that's kind of the point is, like, it again goes to the point that, like, the league needs a developmental system. It needs more opportunities for guys. But if he's in the building, like, to me, this is also another indictment. Sorry to kick a dead horse here, but, like, Scott Turner, what are you doing, man? Like, you're the one running the offensive meetings. You know, do you not give your young, potentially future quarterback? But it also goes to he's a fifth rounder. Like, how much you really invested in that guy? It's just, the thing is, like, sometimes things can be frustrating without anyone really being wrong. And I don't want to beat up on Rivera for being honest and open, because that does not incentivize him to keep being honest about decisions that he makes. Mm-hmm. And I, as someone who would like to know the truth, as a journalist / I think no fan wants to be lied to, like, I want him to keep telling the truth. Unfortunately, I think this truth does not reflect particularly well on him. I think he knows that, but it is a data point that if I'm Josh Harris, I'm considering as I look into the future. I'll put it that way. I think that was a fair, not too harsh take.
I think it was perfect, to be honest.
Perfect take. I did it again.
Great. Hey, look, not a lot of people can do what you do, Craig.
That's why you got to listen 4 to 7 each and every day. Some days we can't even get the sound on. Same show, hour and 45 minutes later.
Yep.
Perfect takes. Yes. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app and YouTube, Twitter too. Twitter.com/@Team980. If you want, of course, the best of the show, you can subscribe on YouTube at Craig Hoffman as well. Tomorrow on the show, Haney, it's Friday. Can you believe we made it to Friday? I feel like this week felt like it was stuck in the front half of it forever, and then finally we made it.
Yeah,
now we're here. It's Friday.
Yeah. Yes, Wednesday was definitely a long day. I walked into today's show hoping it was Friday. So yeah, it's definitely been a long week, and we have another long week. But luckily for us, next week it's only 4 days.
That is true. It is Labor Day weekend. You doing anything fun for the weekend?
My family has said that they want to do something on Sunday. I don't know what that is because guess what? They haven't let me know. So
it's not like your birthday or anything, is it?
No.
Okay.
See, my birthday would have been, this whole extravaganza, like it would have been big. And it would have been well planned out already. So,
I see.
Yeah.
I see. I thought your birthday was this. No, your birthday is like back in June, right?
July 1st, actually.
July 1st, yeah.
The first of the month.
Right.
Yes,
That's right. Because, like, I always remember very early on in the show, you missed like I think the first official day of the show.
Yes, because
it was your birthday and you were on a boat in Florida.
Yeah, we were celebrating the week before because the week of my actual birthday, I was going to be with all my line brothers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, when was that? Was that a training camp thing? No, it was.
Yeah, now that I think about it, 26 was actually a lot. I did a lot for my birthday. It was like a 2-3 week, kind of celebration. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
It's one way to celebrate, though.
You went full on birthday month.
I know.
You were that guy.
Yes.
You were.
That was me. This guy.
That guy.
Have you ever been one of those guys?
No. The closest I would come to like a birthday extension celebration is like, hey, we're going to take a little trip for our anniversary, which was technically last weekend. This weekend. But it's just because it worked better with our schedules and we could do something that we wanted to do that we can only do on a weekday.
So this is your version of celebrating.
But it was not like we celebrated all week long. It's not like every day we're like, another anniversary day.
Did you guys go to dinner though?
Yeah, we went to a nice.
And you went to the Mrs. game.
Well, actually, no. On our actual, what did we do on our actual anniversary night after? No, we didn't. We went to a really nice dinner the night before.
Mm-hmm.
The actual anniversary. AC was in town, so we went with her. But we went to like one of our favorite places, and so that was like a little bit of an anniversary treat. We went to the sporting events we wanted to go to, but like we want to go to a specific place. We're going to Philly, and we wanted to go to a specific place that it's Rachel's from Philly, and like this was when she lived there. This was her favorite breakfast spot. She'd go almost every morning. Like they knew her name, they knew her order. She'd just walk in, they'd be like,
"What's the name
hey,
of this place?"
I'm not gonna tell you on the air. I'll tell you off the air. They don't get a free shout out. Plus, I don't want to tell people where we're gonna be on Tuesday morning.
I just thought.
Yeah. Your operational security is real bad, bro. It's something we gotta tighten that up. But we so we're gonna go on Monday, and then we stay the night Monday, and then like Monday's a holiday, but Tuesday morning we can go to this breakfast spot. But we couldn't do that really on it doesn't work as well on a Sunday into a Monday. So having the full day and the extra weekend day lets us like have a weekend, take our little trip, come back, and then I'll be back in time for the show on Tuesday.
Sounds like a perfect plan.
Or Amtrak is down and we're in deep trouble.
Whoa.
Knock on wood. Yeah, knock on wood. Odyssey World Headquarters is in Philadelphia, so if I have to go storm down.
They are indeed.
Just go knock on the front door and be like, hey!
You think they
have a studio?
I think so.
Let me in.
I would hope so.
It's game week.
That too.
We can't miss the show. You ready to make picks next week? Yo, we have to make our season picks.
Yeah, and I did bad.
Last year you did awful.
Yeah, last year was terrible. Actually, I still have the record.
Yeah. You did awful on the preseason pick. You did awful on the season picks in the season. Who did you pick to win the Super Bowl last year?
You picked the Chiefs.
I sure did. It's easy to remember because I was right.
I think I picked the Rams
Ooh,
to start the season.
yikes, bro.
They just got hurt.
They did, but still, it wasn't exactly unpredictable.
I want to say, it was a Rams-Eagles NFC championship. That's what I predicted. I just predicted the wrong team would go.
Yeah, but okay, sure. The Eagles thing, good job on that.
Exactly.
You couldn't be more wrong on the Rams. They were awful. And their injuries started so early that Odell didn't survive the Super Bowl.
They actually weren't that. They had a lot of one-score games that they lost on. But you're right. They still did lose.
Are you sitting here on August 31st, 2023? I had to dip around my laptop that's sitting like right here to check the date on the computer. On August 31st, 2023.
Anthony Haney, yes.
Trying to defend your pick of the Rams in last year's game.
Yep. But it's all good because guess what? It's a new year, and I will not be picking the Rams.
What if that's the team you should be picking?
Well, Cooper Kupp has
a setback.
So they're only going to go as far as he takes that offense with Stafford.
I'm not going to pick the Rams.
Yeah, me either.
I got to figure out who I am going to pick. Last year I felt really good about the Chiefs. Turned out that was a good feeling.
Yeah.
I got to start thinking about this. Maybe what are we going to do this? You want to do it on Tuesday? Or should we do it on Thursday because you got the season kickoff that night?
Thursday's going to be a lot, though, because are we going to do our fantasy football draft that day as well?
Oh, yeah. No, we should do the fantasy football draft on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay, cool. Because last year we definitely did it the day of the first game.
Yeah, we can get ahead of
chaotic. It. Yeah.
Because that gives us a chance to, like, we could, here's what we should do. On Tuesday, we should open up the league. So if you're new to the show from last year, this is what happened. I hadn't signed up for any fantasy football leagues.
Nope.
Which, by the way, is still true for me right now. I have no fantasy football leagues again. And I was like, I want to play fantasy football. And so we opened up, it was like a 12-team league, I think.
Yep.
And we opened it up and said, call in and tell us why you should be in the league. We had it was the most calls we've ever had. It was an hour. Too. We had the guy, still the undefeated champion in terms of the call to get in the league is the guy who Drake, what was the deal with his wife and Drake on Instagram?
I would have to go pull
I would have to go back and look. But we had to look him up and everything. We're like, no, that's legit. He's in the league.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was like the guy I think Drake DM'd this guy's wife. It was a whole thing. So we will do that again. Let's plan on Tuesday. I feel like maybe we'll do it, 6 o'clock. We got to pick 6. 5. Maybe we just do it off the top of the show. Maybe we just do it at 4 o'clock.
Or we tease it. Oh, dang, yeah. We might have
Or you want to know what we should do?
Tease it for 5:30.
We should do some every hour. Because that way people because like as much as I would love to think that everyone listening right now has been listening since we got on the air at 4 o'clock. I know that's not how this works.
Yep.
A lot of people listen in their cars or when they get home, they flip us on the smart TV and they watch us on YouTube. And so however it is, we want to give every part of the show. So let's just dedicate 4:30, 5:30, and 6:30 on Tuesday to taking calls of who's going to get in the fantasy league.
Yep.
I'll see which celebrities want to join, a.k.a. which of our media friends want in. I'll see if my tennis partner, Wes Hall, wants in. We'll see if we can get a couple of folks in. It's a no-money league. It's just for funsies and bragging rights. We will talk about the league occasionally on the air, and we'll see how many spots we want to open up. So are you updating the rundown next week so we don't forget?
I definitely am.
So that's the plan. Next Tuesday, 4:30, 5:30, 6:30, barring some wacky news screwing us over, we'll open up the phones, and you get to make your case for being in our fantasy football league. Anthony will take your email off the air, and then you'll get an email saying, "Hey, you're in the league," and we'll do it, and then we'll draft it on Wednesday during the day. So sorry for those of you that have real jobs and have to work. And actually, Anthony, you know what we could even do? I got to talk to CK on exactly the details of this, but we could live stream the draft.
Oh, yeah, that would be fun.
So I don't know whether we'll do that. I kind of want to do that on my page, but we might do that on 980's page. Maybe we'll simulcast it. But at some point on Wednesday, we'll set up shop and we'll live stream our fantasy draft.
Sounds like a plan to me, baby.
All right, so that's coming up on Wednesday. All right, when we get back, we had this, that, and the other thing planned. Honestly, that was better. The good news is it's time for what's trending, and so the tennis I was going to tell you about, the results I can tell you about now.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
End of an era in American men's tennis. John Isner went out in the most appropriate of ways. The American who's most famous for the longest match in Wimbledon history loses in a long fifth-set tiebreaker at the U.S. Open as his final tournament of his career. Isner goes down to fellow American Michael Mmoh. Five-setter, he lost the tiebreak 10-7 in the fifth. Elsewhere at the U.S. Open today, Alexander Zverev moves on in 4 sets. Jannik Sinner, the 6th seed, defeats his countryman Lorenzo Sonego, the Italian. They move on in 3 sets, or he moves on in 3 sets. Other than that today, Andrei Rublev, currently in the 3rd set, defeating or ahead of Gael Monfils, the Frenchman. Rublev up 2-0. And then tonight, Daniil Medvedev plays at 8:30, and the number 1 overall seed, Carlos Alcaraz, is at 7. If I can quickly pull up the women's side of things, I'll get you the updates there. So far today, American Peyton Stearns through in straight sets. Ariana Sabalenka through in straight sets, the 2nd seed. And Madison Keys, the American, through as well in straight sets. Tonight, you get Ons Jabeur taking the court, the 5th seed, at 6:45. And Jessica Pegula plays at Arthur Ashe Stadium to close out the night at 9. That is what's trending. I'm Craig Hoffman on the Team 980.
Say what you want about Jake. Like, this is speaking from my personal experience. When I got to play the last half of a preseason game, I knew I was going to dominate that son of a gun. Because there's a lot of dudes out there who don't play football, who aren't going to be playing football here in 3 weeks. And you can get after those guys. And I think there's a little bit of that going on. And I will say this team and the depth of this team also supports them at a really high level. Like, that 3rd string offensive line did a great job. The 3rd string wide receivers like Bryson Tremaine, Tinsley, name your guy. Those guys are good football players that deserve a shot at playing in the NFL. They've got guys that are good around him. And usually that's not the situation with a 3rd quarterback, so they don't look as good. But here, that they did a great job of insulating him and supporting him, and he had a good performance.
I'll even put Fromm's name down over here in this other column as guys that we would like to keep on the practice squad, and we'll see 100%. How many we wind up with.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. That's a guy you want in your program, you want in your building. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that's what you want.
Ron's initial instinct was play Taylor for a series or 2 and then go to Sam. So you would have seen him. He just wouldn't have started the game, which, you know, look, Logan said at the time he understood it, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, Logan doesn't know what he's talking about. But I didn't subscribe to that theory. I will say that.
Yeah.
You want to take the pressure off. Like, what? No, I want to see if he can handle it, and that's kind of the point. Is like, it again goes to the point that like the league needs a developmental system. It needs more opportunities for guys, but if he's in the building. Like, to me, this is also another indictment. Sorry to kick a dead horse here, but, like, Scott Turner, what are you doing, man? Like, you're the one running the offensive meetings. Do you not give your young, potentially future quarterback? But it also goes to he's a fifth-rounder. Like, how much you really invested in that guy. It's just the thing is, like, sometimes things can be frustrating without anyone really being wrong. And I don't want to beat up on Rivera for being honest and open. Because that does not incentivize him to keep being honest about decisions that he makes. Mm-hmm. And I, as someone who would like to know the truth, as a journalist / I think no fan wants to be lied to. I want him to keep telling the truth. Unfortunately, I think this truth does not reflect particularly well on him. I think he knows that, but it is a data point that if I'm Josh Harris, I'm considering as I look into the future. I'll put it that way. I think that was a fair, not too harsh take.
I think it was perfect, to be honest.
Perfect take. I did it again.
Great. Hey, look, not a lot of people can do what you do, Craig.
That's why you got to listen 4 to 7 each and every day. Some days we can't even get the sound on. Same show, hour and 45 minutes later.
Yep.
Perfect takes. Yes. It's the Hoffman Show. We're live on the Team 980, the free Odyssey app, YouTube, Twitter. More to come as well in the streaming department here, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks. Just trying to make it as easy as possible for you out there to consume the show. I'd also highly recommend at this point in the calendar, Anthony, if folks are not subscribed to the Team 980's YouTube page, you're going to want to do that. We've already announced the Take Command pregame show is coming. It's the same pregame show that's been the last couple of years. It's me and it's Logan. We're now officially going to be the Take Command pregame show, and we are going to stream that live. So that's going to be pretty sweet. We got some more fun announcements that are coming very soon. They're all getting finalized, some I's dotted, T's crossed, etc. But you're going to be able to watch us live, talking ball. And with no TV pregame show anymore, I'm just saying, you might want to learn how to use that smart TV now. I want to get used to throwing us on in the afternoons. That way you know how to use the TV on that YouTube app on a Sunday morning to get Logan and I live. So subscribe to youtube.com/@theteam980, and you will not only get this show live every single day, get highlights from the show. Eventually, we will have our other shows streaming as well. And then, of course, the Take Command pregame show live Sunday mornings during football season. So, with that, we tell you first, tomorrow on the show, Ashley Hatch from the Washington Spirit, one of the best players in the NWSL. Anthony, she probably will score 3 goals while she's on the show.
Oh, she's just going to keep scoring and
scoring. That's all she does all the time is score goals.
That's all we know.
Yeah, she just is like, boo, I scored. Watching a game, it's late. It's the 80-something minute. She hasn't scored yet. Oh, hey, look, there's a penalty. Look who's walking to the spot. Bang, tie game. So we'll talk to Hatchie, who, by the way, like, I will full transparency, like, Hatchie's a friend. She's one of the players that was there when I worked for the team. Like, me, her husband, and my wife have all, like, gone to dinner before. So it should be a fun conversation between friends where we just get to talk football, talk what it's like to play in one of the best leagues in the world and what it's been like to play at Audi Field this year, where and they used to play limited games at Audi, and she scored in every one of them. So, what's it been like to just be able to be at the place where you score all the time this year? So that'll be fun to talk to Hatchie tomorrow. Also on the show tomorrow, of course, Clinton Yates. Hopefully our guy Mike Yam from NFL Network is going to join as well. So we got a bunch of stuff planned. For right now, though, it is time for Real Things Real People Said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
All right, we got a bunch of real things today. Let's start off speaking of women's soccer, women's football, and more of a serious tone, actually. Today, a bunch of awards for the year in soccer, and England's manager, who led them to the semifinals of the World Cup, dedicated her Coach of the Year award to the team that won it, the Spaniards.
The issues around the Spanish team, and it really hurts me as a coach, as a mother of 2 daughters, as a wife, and as a human being. The game has grown so much, but there's also still a long way to go in women's football and in society. And I would like to dedicate this award to the Spanish team, the team that played on the World Cup such great football that everyone enjoyed. To give this applause afterwards, but this team deserves to be celebrated and deserves to be listened to, and I'm going to give them again a big applause, and I hope you will join me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bravo, Serena Weigman, the coach of the English national team, giving the Spanish team glory, which is what they deserve because they won the bleeping World Cup. And I'll say this real quick about this topic. We've heard all kinds of different, different analysis of it. And it boils down to the fact that Rubiales, the president of the Spanish Federation, who sexually assaulted a player on international television by kissing her against her will after they won the World Cup, Jenny Hermoso, he's a creep. We got it. He's a terrible, terrible human being. But I think the reaction of this, I thought the framing of it this way just really drove the point home. And it was from my buddy Tommy Vitor, who said it on his podcast, Pod Save the World. Tommy's been on the show before, used to work in the International Affairs Department of the Obama White House. Point is, he said, imagine if he had kissed Lionel Messi like this. Because the kiss would be just as unwanted. And if that doesn't stick with you, you need to reevaluate how you're processing this story. Kiss is unwanted, period. And whether it was on Jenny Hermoso or Lionel Messi, our reaction should be the same. That's not okay. And I cannot believe this goober still has a job. And I don't think he will much longer, but we've been saying that for 3 weeks. But good on Serena Weigman for keeping this in the news until the right thing ultimately happens. All right, much lighter notes for the rest of Real Things. Back to the U.S. Open, where Carlos Alcaraz, the number 1 overall seed, who will play tonight on Arthur Ashe Stadium, finished his match, went to the press room, and questions for Carlos, anybody?
All right, who would like to start? Anybody? Don't be shy. You're here. Carlos is there. You have to ask him a question.
Bueno, Carlitos, ¿qué sensaciones
Yeah, we go. Go ahead.
¿Qué sensaciones has tenido, como has dicho un poco en inglés?
How did nobody have a question ready? He's the world number 1. Wasn't a particularly interesting match. His opponent retired.
Were they starstruck?
Maybe. He's 20 years old. You can't be starstruck by a 20-year-old. Them's the rules.
Okay.
Simpler questions for Jalen Hurts. Jalen, we're going to play this or that with your favorite foods. Ready? Go.
Philly cheesesteak or Texas barbecue?
My mama's barbecue.
Mama's barbecue or Oklahoma smash burger?
My mama's barbecue.
Mama's barbecue or Southern fried chicken?
My mama's barbecue.
Mama's barbecue or Waffle House?
My mama's barbecue.
And Mama's barbecue or Wawa?
My mama's barbecue.
Anything in the whole world or your mama's barbecue. It's my mama's barbecue. What the hell you think the answer is?
It's the fact, though, he tried to really sell the Wawa.
I mean, look, Philly folks love their Wawa.
Really?
You don't know about that? That might be a little bit of a too American.
I mean, we have Wawa down here. Wawa is cool, but I didn't know Philly was Wawa was a Philly thing.
Yo, the state of Pennsylvania is divided by people who swear by Wawa and swear by Sheetz. It's a whole thing up there.
That is actually insane. So it's like almost in Boston where they have so many Dunkin' Donuts on every block.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
And there's like a pride in it.
Yeah.
All right. Where is this last one from?
The last one is
James.
Oh, the Commanders.
This is titled, "Is the NFL rigged? James Smith-Williams, I am terrified to hit play."
Come on, man. What do I know? What do I know? I can holler at you? Is NFL scripted?
100%.
Yes. Yes. So what's going to happen?
I already know the script. What part do you want to know?
I just love my script from last year, tearing my thumb in the preseason, and then coming back 2 games, tearing my shoulder. Best script ever.
Defensive Rookie of the Year, you know?
You know, they wrote Defoe into the script week 1. They're going to run a reverse on kickoff return. And I'm going to pick the reverse, score a touchdown, do a backflip, and I'm going to land on my head. Are you going to be hurt? Or are you going to be okay? I'm going to be all right. Okay, bet.
They said I was going to catch a pick 6 on the out. And I'm going to hit my head on the goalpost and jump in the stands.
You going to jump in the stands? Say less. Okay, well, how's your script been? Word on the street was that you knew EB was coming because y'all was together in KC and y'all compared scripts. And y'all be back together in like 2 years. How many sacks you going to have this year?
I'm going to have 11. But I'm going to get 2 holding calls on them. That's going to knock me back down to 9.
You gotta keep it interesting. All right, we'll see you tomorrow on the Hoffman Show.
WTEM Washington and